So good evening and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In today's edition dated 17th of September 2024, we are going to discuss the following articles with respect to your UPSC Civil Services preparation. With respect to mains, we are going to discuss two articles, that is first with respect to Bulldozer Justice and second with respect to precision farming. And from the standpoint of prelims examination, we are going to discuss three articles, first being with respect to Nipah virus, of whose outbreak has created kind of scares in the state of Kerala. Then we are going to discuss center-state emergency relations, and then lastly we will be discussing articles with respect to the GST Council. So without further delay, let us begin our discussion. So the first article is inspired by a news that featured on page number 6 of today's The Hindu newspaper. What was the context of this news? The context was that Supreme Court has asked to examine the suggestions to stop Bulldozer Justice. Now there is no direct linkage of this news with respect to your syllabus. However, the GS paper to syllabus with respect to the mains examination, in the past there have been topics like separation of power, judicial delivery system and social justice, on which previous year questions has been asked. As you can see, in 2019 there was a direct question on, do you think that the Constitution of India does not accept principle of strict separation of power? Right, so this principle of strict separation of power and the issues related to were discussed during the Ram Javaya Kapoor case, and it is based on the principles of checks and balances. So this was the question, this was a typical question which was asked in 2019. So on similar grounds, right, why do we understand and know that this question or this issue pertains to the topic of separation of power and rule of law? Why? Because the justice delivery system is the prerogative of judiciary, and the executive is supposed to carry out the judgment that has been given by the judiciary. But when executive takes the matters in its own hand, and even before the person who is accused has been legitimately conveyed by the judiciary that yes, you are the perpetrator of so and so crime, then only some legal law based action is taken on that person. But here in this case of Bulldozer Justice, there is an element of extrajudicial prosecution of the victim, right? So now let us understand what are the various issues arising out of this particular phenomena that is called as Bulldozer Justice. Now the first element is that it is in violation of principles of rule of law and due process of law, and rule of law is duly enshrined in our constitution in the article 14, and similarly due process of law has been interpreted to be enshrined in article 21 of the Constitution of India. So it is a direct violation of fundamental rights of the citizens, right? Then second aspect with respect to issue arising out of the principle of Bulldozer Justice is disproportionate punishment. Now it is also considered as a kind of collective punishment. Suppose there was someone, for example, who was involved in the issue of, let us say, a stone pelting. Now what the administration does is that they identify the person and they try to bulldoze the home of that particular person. Now that person might be of some certain impressionable mind or ideology, and he tried to do certain things that were not legally valid. But is it justified to punish his or her own whole family based on the acts that are done by the certain individual? So this is well understood to be a disproportionate punishment and a collective punishment. And the principles of collective punishment, although this Geneva Convention article number 33 pertains to the state of warfare, of war, but collective punishment have been prohibited under this particular article, that is with respect to the Geneva Convention. Now the third aspect is the potential of misuse. Now you all understand that the executive wing, there are three wings of the government, that is executive, judiciary and legislature. This executive wing is supposed to be the most powerful wing, and it has got the most interface interface with the citizens of India. But however, over the period and in the due course of exercise of their parts, they feel like they have a kind of immunity, right? So in this case also, they might, the executive or the civic administration might feel like they are the my-baps of the individual. He has got no legal or judicial protection, so on and forth, and they can act in arbitrary manner, right? And in the exercise of their power, if they act in arbitrary manner, which article is being violated? Article 14. It is considered as a bulwark against arbitrary action of state, right? And it was well affirmed in EP Royappa case. Again, this case pertains to an IAS officer who had he was transferred in an arbitrary manner to some other place of posting. So again, in this case, it was held that Article 14 gives guarantee against arbitrary, it is the biggest guarantee against arbitrary action of the state. So state's action needs not to be arbitrary and should be founded on well established principles and reasons. And do you think that bulldozer justice pertains to or can be called as a well reasoned decision? It might be called as a decision taken in the fit of rage or in the fit of in the backdrop of certain emotional turmoil, but it cannot be considered as a reasoned decision. Next aspect related to the same is loss of public trust and transparency. Again, there have been alleged instances that these actions have been carried out against one particular community or against the socio-economic profile of the individuals. For example, most of these actions have been carried out against people of low socio-economic background, for example, jhugis and jhopdis, right? This ultimately or collectively leads to the loss of public trust in the public institutions and then ultimately erodes the rubric of democracy. Furthermore, again, we can argue that it also directly infringes upon the rights of the individual. Which rights are we talking about? Article 21, right? Article 21 says that we don't just have the right to life but also right to life with dignity. Again, in Olga Tellis case, Olga Tellis versus Municipal Corporation of Bombay case, and similarly Ajay Makan case, this case pertains to state of Bombay or Maharashtra. This case pertains to state of Delhi, and in both cases it was affirmed that even though there might be encroachment on the public places, there might be encroachment by the poor people, jhuggi jhopdis on the public places, still you cannot evict them. The municipality cannot evict them without providing them due notices and without providing them proper rehabilitation places, right? So this again this directly infringes upon the fundamental right to life with dignity of each citizen of India. That is the case with the bulldozer justice. Then again, we can argue that it also leads to misuse of legislation. Similarly, why do we say this? Because in the court, the government continuously argues that my lord, these kind of actions, for example, bulldozer being rolled on the houses of the culprits, they are not done without the proper legislation, in which the legislation of various states, for example UP and most of the other states, have those legislations in which municipality can do action in which the perpetrator has occupied the revenue land. But again, here the case is that these legislations are being exercised in a colorable manner, right? The intention of the legislation is what? To not allow the capture of public land or the revenue land by the individuals. But here See, if you had to do this, you could have done it in the prior manner also. But why the action is taken only after certain events or so? This means that you are using, the administration is using the exercise in its colorable manner. So this is again one of the biggest issues with respect to the bulldozer justice. Now, what are the potential outcomes associated with this principle, with this issue? First one being economic impact. See, again, we have the data, we have the details about how many people in India live below poverty line. Again, similarly, since they live below poverty line, housing in India is still considered as a kind of luxury, right? So the economic impact of this particular incident directly impacts the family which comes in the below poverty line. Similarly, it could lead to social unrest. Again, why? Because majority of the actions are taken against, for example, there have been reports after reports that actions are taken against the minorities and actions are taken against the socio-economic people with poor socio-economic background. Similarly, this leads to increased number of legislation and long-term damage to governance. For example, it could cause an ethical dilemma in the mind of a civil servant, that why do I need to be taking care of certain orders which are considered to be illegal or illegitimate in their manner, because Supreme Court has already given guidelines in these following cases that illegal eviction or forceful eviction is illegal in its nature. So these are the issues associated with the concept of bulldozer justice. Now, what can be the way forward? As of now, Supreme Court has asked that there needs to be immediate ban on this exercise of bulldozer based justice, right? And then there till the guidelines are being framed. So first instance, or what is the first way forward, is that to establish a pan-India guideline in this regard. There needs to be a pan-India standard operating procedures and pan-India guidelines in this context. Second aspect is increased sensitization of law enforcement agencies. Right, so increased sensitization, increased training, and increased focus on telling them about the previously established legislations and landmark judgments of the courts might lead to the sensitization, and they might feel a bit reluctant to carry out such kind of executive orders. Third aspect is that why are these carried out? One of the argument set or given by the executive is that this judicial process takes a lot of time, and then the problem is that many encroachers keep on encroaching the land, right? So there needs to be expedited judicial process so that the decision comes out fast, and the illegal occupiers of the land also need to be taken care of. Then there is a need of long-term policy reforms, and policy needs to be fair, just, and reasonable, as said in the Maneka Gandhi case, right? All procedures and policies need to be fair, just, and reasonable. And lastly, what we can suggest is that there can be a compensation in case of arbitrary violation. There have been precedents, for example, there have been precedents in which Madhya Pradesh High Court ordered fair and reasonable compensation because of the action that was taken in form of bulldozer breaking or demolishing the home of certain people. They challenged it, and court ordered certain compensation amount in that context. So this is going to be the way forward. Based on this, although there is very less likelihood, but let us try to understand one question. The impact of extrajudicial punishment, right? Extrajudicial punishment is any kind of punishment which is not judicially given, which is not pronounced by the court of law, right? So one manifestation of extrajudicial punishment is the bulldozer justice, is more pronounced, and on the marginalized communities, right? As we have already seen in the previous context, this extrajudicial punishments, who are the main victims? For example, these are people who live in jhugis and jhopdis, people who come from very low socioeconomic profile, people who could be coming from minority communities, so on and forth, people who could be migrant laborers coming from one state to the other, right? The impact of extrajudicial punishment is more pronounced on the marginalized communities and has a potential to undermine democratic institutions, right? So how we have seen that, how does it undermine the issues or democratic institutions, right? So what legal safeguard and policy reforms are necessary to prevent the misuse of extrajudicial methods of punishment? You can try it on your own. The structuring has been discussed already, and you can try it on your own, right? So moving on to the next topic for today, this particular news was given on the page number 9 of today's Indian Express newspaper. What is the context of this news? Government of India has come out with Smart Precision Horticulture program under Mission for Integrated Development of Horticulture scheme, MIDH scheme, and government has a plan to invest 6,000 crore rupees to boost precision farming. Now, what is this concept of precision farming? We are going to understand in the coming time. So what is the syllabus mapping? What is the syllabus mapping with respect to this news? In your paper, GS paper 3, agriculture and associated issues have been directly mentioned, and in the past there has been a direct question. I think this was question in the very last year, 2023, right? So how does e-technology help farmer in production and marketing of agriculture produce? Explain it. This was a 10 marker, I think, in 2023, right? So directly on e-technology, how does e-technology help in the production and marketing? First aspect is production, second aspect is marketing of agricultural produce, and explain it. So one dimension of e-technology is precision based farming, or technology ka one dimension is how does precision farming help maximize the output of a peasant or a farmer, right? So what is precision farming? The first aspect is to understand what is precision farming. It is a modern farming management strategy. It is not just farming strategy, it is a farming management strategy in which farming is better managed. It is better managed with the help of technology, that uses technology to observe, measure and respond. Three aspects. First one being to observe what is going on, second is to measure various parameters on which farming is based, and to respond accordingly to the variability in crop and field. So once you respond accordingly to the various variables which impact the crop and the yield, you get to maximize the crops, right? What is the suggested aim of precision farming? To optimize agriculture produce and improve efficiency and sustainability. Now what could be the various elements of precision farming? So basically this word is a amalgamation of two words. First one being precision, second one being farming. So what is precision? You apply only the specific amount of input that is required to optimize the produce. The problem with traditional technology or traditional way of farming is that you apply, suppose 10 liters of water per day is needed for certain crop. You are flooding the field, you are applying 100 liters, or in sometimes you are allowing even 200 to 300 liters of water for that crop. Suppose there is need of X amount of nutrients and Y amount of micronutrients to be available in the crops, right? But you are allowing the fertilizers in indiscriminate amount, so that fertilizer is lost, crops are not able to uptake it, and then it gets leached into the soil, and ultimately the soil profile also damages. So traditional methods of farming are proving to be counterproductive. So this has led to the concept of precision farming. As you can see the map here, what does a smart farm indicate? right? So it ultimately leads to an integration of technology at various stages of farming. For example, concept of cloud storage is involved, drones are involved for taking survey of the crops, smart collars for the cattle, smart crop sensors are involved, automatic systems and self-driving vehicles are involved to take care of the crops. Now let us directly discuss what are the various components of precision agriculture, right? First one being the GPS and GNSS system. What could be the possible use of GPS and GIS systems? To tag your crop, to take care of your crop, and to observe the crop. Second aspect is with respect to a usage of Internet of Things, right? And for example, usage of drone. All these aspects are used for observing the crop. Next aspect is with respect to VRT, or that is variable rate technology. Now what is variable rate technology? Suppose in crop let us say crop A, it requires X amount of input material at position Y, but similarly this requires Y amount of input or Z amount of input in position A. So variable rate technology allows what? That you can apply the raw materials, for example micronutrients, macronutrients, water, so on and forth, in the specific manner and in a variable manner. Wherever it is required less, you apply less raw material. Wherever it is required more, you apply more material. So this is again, what does it ultimately lead to? It ultimately leads to targeted or precision based mechanism. And second is that it leads to saving of the raw material or saving of the input materials like fertilizers, right? Next one is artificial intelligence. Again, what could be the potential uses? This has again been a PYQ in the past, that how can artificial intelligence be used to maximize the field output, right? So what can be the use of artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence could be used to identify the disease in the very elementary stage. It could be used for first identification of the disease, obviously. Second one, what could be the use? It could be used for applying or telling suggestions, right? Suggesting what could be done in the future, what could be done to as a remedy. Next, then there is an aspect of remote sensing. Again, it is aspect is linked with the surveying. Next is with respect to data analysis, data analytics and collection, right? What could be the use for future, right? What it could be used for future analytics, that yes, this particular disease, for example, is prone to X region, right? So specific inputs are required in that particular region, but otherwise at other places no such specific inputs are required. So this could be the collecting data analytics. And again, data analytics is useful for weather forecasting and insurance, right? Insurance also uses data analytics so as to predict what could be the weather in the next coming days, what could be the protection measures, and in case there is a failure of the crop, then this helps in better claiming and faster claiming of your insurance, right? Then next is yield monitors. What is the use of yield monitors? They collect the data, they monitor the data, and they predict that yes, this is going to be your yield, and thus you know in advance what is going to be your likely yield. So all this leads to what is called as precision farming, right? Then what are the challenges associated with conventional farming? Why do we need, so first one being resource inefficiency, as we have already discussed, be it water, be it fertilizers, be it work. Okay, we don't even, when we consider the input cost, we don't even consider the hard work that is put by the farmer, right? So resource inefficient, the traditional methods are considered as resource inefficient. Second one being, because indiscriminate use of fertilizer is done, there is an environmental cost involved, not just for humans but for also other flora and fauna and the soil profile as well. Next is climate vulnerability. Traditional methods are considered to be climate vulnerable. And then limited technological integration leads to low outputs, and low outputs yield to loss for the farmer. So one of the components of doubling the farmer income is to provide clinical inputs with respect to technology, so that the farmer's income could be doubled. Now, what are the obvious advantages or merits of the precision farming? First one being increased efficiency, so that it utilizes resources like water, fertilizer and pesticides more effectively and efficiently. Next one being enhanced productivity, both in terms of quality as well as quantity. And next, it is more sustainable. Why? Because it provides, or it does least damage to the profile of the soil. Next is support for the farmer. In this particular scheme, in which Government of India is planning to invest 6,000 crore for the boosting of precision based farming, right? Interest subvention of 3% on loans for technology adoption is one of the components, and there is a component of collaboration with various experts, for example Netherlands and State of Israel, right? Next, what are the various measures taken by the government to boost precision farming? First, and the very obvious, is inspired by the news article for today, that is investment of 6,000 crore in the smart precision horticulture program. Now it also covers an area of 15,000 acres over the period of 5 years, that is 24-25 to 28-29, and is going to benefit 60,000 plus farmers. Then next is agriculture, establishing agriculture infrastructure fund, which would be used to provide loans for technological solution for the farming practices. Next is with respect to expansion of center for excellences, right? So as of now, Government of India and ICAR have established various centers for excellence. What do? They take out various researches in various kind of agroclimatic conditions and suggest that which kind of the crop is going to be best suitable for the particular soil profile. So in this scheme, the Government of India would increase the number of these center for excellences to 100, and then again it would be assisted with the help of Indo-Israel project in the same, right? Then again it is going to be spread. The geographical spread of this scheme is again going to cover in areas or states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh and others, right? So this is all with respect to precision farming. Let us discuss one question. What is precision agriculture? This question is of direct in nature, just like the one that appeared in the previous year. What is precision agriculture and how does it help the farmer in better crop management? So straight up question, you define it, you write down the features, and then once you write down the features, you tell that how does these features, these listed above listed 5 or 6 features, how do they help the farmer in better crop management. So that is all with respect to the discussion for mains. We quickly jump to the discussion for prelims. In prelims, we have taken the first article that is inspired by the news on page number 5 of Hindu. That is, what is the context of this news? The context is Nipah virus has caused deaths or scares in the state of Kerala. Now let us understand in this context why we have taken this news. Why? Because the topic of viruses is of essential importance to the UPSC. They have consistently asked in the past prelims, they have consistently asked topics based on viruses. So first one being, what are the key features of the viruses or Nipah virus? It is a single stranded RNA virus, right? So the anomaly over here in this particular virus is that the genetic material of Nipah virus is composed of RNA rather than DNA. Usually in viruses, the genetic material is composed of DNA, right? But here in the case of Nipah virus, the genetic material is composed of RNA. Now what is the mode of transmission? This becomes important for us. Why? Because prevention against the Nipah virus outbreak is directly contingent upon it, right? So what is the mode of transmission? First one being direct contact with infected animals, for example bats and pigs. They are considered as one of the crucial carriers of this virus, and then it can also be transferred from one human to other with the help of or with the assistance of contaminated food, or directly from one person to other person. So first thing is that it is very contagious, right? And second thing is that first one is that it is very contagious, and second one is that it has got high fatality rates. So again, fruit bats or flying foxes are considered as natural reservoir of this virus. So it occurs naturally or naturally in various animals, for example fruit bats, or in general bats and pigs, and it is transferred. It can be transferred from animals to human, and then it can be transmitted via food or in general contact from person to person. As you can see, it is a single stranded RNA virus. What are the symptoms of this virus? First one being fever, muscle pain and respiratory problem, that is similar to influenza. Second one is inflammation of brain as well as late onset of encephalitis, right? So inflammation of brain might occur when the impact of this virus proceeds. What is the fatality rate? We already discussed. It is having a high fatality rate, that is from 60. It ranges from 65% to 100%, and as of now there is no treatment available when it comes to Nipah virus, right? So based on the understanding that we have just developed with respect to this, in past there was a question, I think in 2017 there was a question on Zika virus, the right answer to which was C. So again, let us try to solve this MCQ. Consider the following statements with reference to Nipah virus, right? First, Nipah virus is a double-stranded DNA virus. Is it a double-stranded DNA virus or a single-stranded DNA virus? So again, statement 1 is incorrect. Flying foxes are believed to be the primary carriers of this virus. Yes, we read this, right? That flying foxes are considered as the reservoir of this virus. So statement 2 is correct. The zoonotic disease cannot be transmitted directly from person to person. Is it so? No, it can be directly transmitted. It can be transmitted via food also. It can be directly transmitted from one human to other, right? So how many statements are correct out of the above given 3 statements? Only one, that is statement 2 is only the correct statement, right? So let us move on to the next question. This particular question is based on the concept of center-state emergency relations. This news appeared on page number 8 of today's The Hindu paper, right? What is the context of this discussion? This debate, there is an ongoing debate about imposition of Article 356 in Manipur in the background of ongoing violence in the state. Now in this context, what we are doing is that in the due course of time it will also be again be taken for the mains examination as well. But as of now, because we see that in the last year there was a direct question on the concept of emergency, right? So we are taking this in the form of prelims MCQ, right? So emergency provisions, what are the various constitutional provisions? Again, there is a caveat, there is a reminder that again you need to be careful, because they are going away and beyond from the traditional books, and they are directly asking questions from the Bayer Acts now, right? So again you need to be careful and directly read the Bayer Acts as well whenever you are reading your conventional books, right? So it is listed in part 18 of the Constitution. What are the relevant articles when it comes to center-state emergency relations? Relevant articles are Article 355 and 356. What does the Bayer Act read? What does the article read? In Article 355, it imposes a duty on the center to protect every state from external aggression and internal disturbance, right? Both external and internal. Here in the case of Manipur, there is no external aggression, there is only internal disturbance. It also specifies that the center should ensure that every state government operates according to constitution, right? So center is the whole sole authority which has to ensure that state governments are run according to the constitution. Now this is again the crucial part. In Article 356, it allows for the imposition of presidential rule if the state government cannot function in accordance to constitutional provision. So Article 355 tells that there needs to be a protection, and it is the Article 355 delineates the duty of the center, right? And then Article 356 tells that if there is a deficiency on the part of state government in functioning, then what can be done? What is the duty of the center? The duty of the center is to impose the president's rule. Right, now let us quickly see what have been in the past, what have been the issues with respect to emergency provisions, right? So since independence, this is one of the Dr. Ambedkar had said that this would remain a dead letter in the constitution, because no progressive democracies, be alone let alone the federal countries based on the federal character, they have a provision such as emergency provision, right? But again, Indian constitution, because it was heavily borrowed from the Government of India Act, similarly these provisions were also borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935. So since the inception of the Constitution of India, right, the emergency or state emergency or president rule has been imposed more than 125 times, right? Then another issue is that it has been imposed in an arbitrary manner and on political consideration. For example, because just take this example of the present issue, had this not been the ruling government and the state government would have not been the similar government, the central government would have ensured or imposed the emergency long time back. But because as of now there is BJP government both at the center as well as at the states, that is the one of the reasons that union government is still discussing that whether to impose emergency or not. So in past, even emergency has been imposed in certain states when there has been unfavorable Lok Sabha results from that particular states, right? So this has been the condition that in the past the misuse of this particular article has been rampant. Third consideration or third issue is that there is no other modern democracy, more importantly any other country with federal spirit in which federalism is constitutionally enshrined, has any such provisions, right? And lastly, another emerging issue which can be seen is that while the scope of Article 356 has been narrowed down, as you might be remembering, most of you have done in your foundation classes, that there is a very famous case of SR Bommai versus Union of India. This case is considered as one of the landmark cases when it comes to upholding the federal character of Indian Union, right? So after this particular judgment of SR Bommai case, the extent and scope of Article 356 was very much curtailed by the Constitution. So on one side, the Article 356, the extent and scope is being curtailed. However, the anomaly over here is that the extent and scope of Article 355 over the period has been expanded. So Article 355, what does it say? What does it say? That it is the duty of the center, right, to protect. It is the duty of the center to protect every state from external aggression and internal disturbance. So the recent case in this context is Sabaranand Sonwal case, right? So this person was Chief Minister of Assam, right? So as when there was influx of migrants, right, when there was influx of migrants in the state of Assam, and there was increasing law and order situation, right? So the Supreme Court gave the decision in favor and told that state government, there is a duty, right? It is a duty of center to protect every state from not just external aggression and also internal disturbance. And huge number of influx of migrants is one of the grounds of imposition of emergencies, right? So this is a pattern that while Article 356 the use has been heavily curtailed after SR Bombay judgment, but however the extent and scope of Article 355 has been increased over the period. So now what are the various suggestions and way forward? Although this topic deals with the mains preparation, but still we will see apart from the guidelines given after SR Bombay and Sarkaria Commission. So they have been given in your static textbooks and notes as well. You kindly go and refer to those notes, right? Then we'll see specific recommendations that have been given by the National Commission on Review of Working of Constitution, that is called as Venkatachalaya Commission. So first guideline or first suggestion that was given by the NCRWC or Venkatachalaya Commission is that it must be used as a last resort and it must be used very sparingly. Second one is that a warning should be first issued prior to the imposition of president's rule in state. First, you need to issue a warning. You need to tell the grounds that yes, there is a deficiency on the part of state government in the discharge of its function and it could lead to breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state, and then only you can carry out president's rule. Second, the third one is that center should indicate the matters wherein the state was not acting, and while imposing the president's rule, it should not work in an arbitrary manner. It should tell that yes, these are the grounds, right, on which you have not acted in accordance with the guidelines or in accordance with the constitution, and that is why we are imposing president's rule in the center. And then why is governor's report so crucial? Because governor presents a report to the president, and based on this particular report, this report acts as a crucial evidence or a backdrop in the context of which usually the president's rule is imposed. So it should be a speaking document. Now what do we mean by the concept of speaking document, right? What is the meaning of speaking document? That again, it should not be based on the whims and fancies. It should not be based on the whims and fancies of the governor, because again, when we see the working of Indian Constitution, we see that although the governor is not an agent of center, but more often than not, governor keeps on acting as an agent of center, tries to destabilize the states which are run by the opposition governments. So governor's report, based on which president's rule is to be enforced, must be a speaking document. That means it should be full of facts, right, instances and evidences, so that there could be evidence-based decision making while imposing the president's rule in India. So this is a little backdrop based on which this article was there. Let us try to solve a practice question. In past, just in the previous year, again you see emergency provisions are given in part 18 of the Constitution. This was a direct question. The takeaway is that they are going into the bare acts, part 9A. Here you can see part 9A, part 18, part 20. See, so keep a tab on the bare acts as well, right? So let us try to solve this particular question. Consider the following statements regarding Article 355 of the Indian Constitution. First, it mandates the center to ensure that the government of every state is carried on in accordance to the provisions of the Constitution. Yes, this statement is correct. Now just read the second statement. It allows the president, while Article 355 is being enforced, it allows the president to assume any powers vested in or exercisable by the High Court. Does it say anything about the High Court's power being transferred to the president? You please see the bare act. You see Article 355 and then again you revisit this video, and please tell me whether this statement number 2 is right or wrong, or whether is it being explicitly mentioned in the bare act of the constitution or not, right? So I'm leaving this MCQ for your good old wisdom, right? Moving on to the third article for today for prelims. The article is inspired by the Business Line News, page number 4, which featured on page number 4 of today's Business Line. And recently, what is the context? That 54th meeting of GST Council has taken place, and it has provided certain recommendations. Now these recommendations are important for your mains point of view, but for your prelims point of view, various bodies, various statutory, various constitutional bodies are of importance, and in the same spirit we are going to see the composition, function and working of the GST Council. So now what are the various constitutional provisions when it comes to GST Council? Article 279 empowers the President to constitute GST Council by a presidential order. So who constitutes it? What is important for us when it comes to prelims? President of India, right? By presidential order, right? It is constituted by a presidential order. So now what is the composition? Again, Article 279A, Clause 2, 279A, Subclause 2 tells that the composition of GST Council is: chair is Finance Minister of India. Member is MOS Finance, either MOS Finance or Minister MOS Finance or Minister of Finance, that is Union Minister of State for Finance or Revenue Department. Third is that from each state, the state's finance minister is also member of GST Council. And lastly, if there is an emergency imposed on in any particular state, as per Article 356, the governor of that state can send its representative to be a part of GST Council for that particular period, right? So the composition is: the chair is headed by Finance Minister of India. One of the members from the central government is MOS Finance or MOS Revenue. Next is that from each state, the state's finance minister is also the member, and in case there is an emergency or president rule in the state, the governor's representative acts as a member. Now what are various functions that are carried out by the GST Council, right? So it discusses various taxes, cesses and surcharges which are levied by the center and state and local bodies, which are to be merged with the GST. Most of this particular job has been already completed, and then it is again an ongoing exercise. The goods and services that may be subjected to GST or exempted from the GST. Again, so inclusion, exclusion, right? Plus along with inclusion, whether it should be increased, the rate should be increased, right, or the rate should be decreased, is also decided in the GST Council. Then model GST laws, principles of levy and appropriation of GST is also discussed in the GST Council. Next, the threshold limit of turnover and what can be the exemption conditions from GST is also discussed, because it is one of the bodies to continue or conduct the cooperative federalism, right? So all decisions are taken based on the consensual basis. Next, the rate, including floor rate with bands of GST, right? Various bands of GST, that is in which band of GST you need to put any particular product, whether one product needs to be set in the 18% GST or 12% GST, so on and forth, or any specific rate or specific period, right? So for example, certain products need to be, let us say, they contribute certain huge amount to the revenue of some particular state. So state specific specific exemption, if that is to be given to certain particular state, again these kind of issues are also discussed in the GST Council. For example, petroleum products are one of the major constituent of states revenue when it comes to GST, whether it should be included in GST or not, till when the exemption should be given, so on and forth. All these decisions are taken in the GST Council meeting. So in the past, in 2017, there was a direct question on goods and services tax. You can go through the question, and for us today there is a one easy simple question based on the goods and services council. With reference to goods and services tax council, consider the following statements. Statement 1. As per the Constitution of India, the GST Council is headed by the Prime Minister, and Union Minister of Finance serve as the vice chairperson. Is it so? Incorrect, right? So because Union Finance Minister acts as the chairperson. Second, GST Council recommends goods and services that may be subjected to or exempted from goods and services tax. This is correct? Yes, this is correct. So statement 2 only is correct. The right answer becomes B. With this we conclude the session for today. I hope you like the session, and then we hope to meet you soon. Have a good evening.